Hello, everyone. Yes, you should cover your face. I'm amazed you showed your face around this place. No, I mean, job done at the end of the day. That definitely was not pretty. We did not really expect a pretty game anyway, I guess. But yeah, lots to talk about in some ways. We will leave most of it to the boys tomorrow night on the podcast to kind of dissect the hell out of it. But felt like we should just jump on and give the post-match reaction, get people's takes on the game too, see what they thought, what they liked, what they didn't like. There was definitely a bit of both. Obviously, the conditions put a, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's kind of like Gordon says, I feel like, yeah, it looks like we're missing, like there's somebody missing since today.
Yeah.
So where did he
Uh,
go? But yeah, what did you make of it? Like I say, the conditions kind of like make it difficult to give a really good evaluation. But having said that, this is not the first time these guys playing in that condition. That's the part that I was finding more frustrating of some of the things we were doing. But what did you think of it, like overall?
well, the conditions certainly played a part. Like, would you say these are par for course conditions? Like, there is rain, but is there this kind of rain
It was
and
the
wind?
wind, I think, more
Yeah,
than
it
the rain,
was the
right? Like
wind
how
that
it
was
was swirling. It was just, yeah, it was
right.
bad.
Not to do a United with their socks and their tight kits, but the weather really went against us there, and I think it's a
Those
pretty
socks
valid
are mighty
excuse.
tight today, by the way.
Right. They're like, I mean, I don't know if they got really tight kits on if, for everyone watching, but they are down 3-0, and it's
They're
not
down
looking.
3-0. Those socks must really be squeezing those calves today.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I think it's a pretty. I wouldn't say it's an excuse, but it's a pretty decent indicator as to the difficulty, especially when we switched sides. It's like, Bournemouth struggled to deal with it, but it looks like the Storm got stronger when we switched sides, so it didn't help us out at all. It didn't help, as you were mentioning, that we keep playing out of the back. I don't know why, but hey, I guess when you got your guns, you got to stick with it. But like overall, this is pretty much we just got to get it done, and we did, thankfully. Bar certain players trying to sabotage our efforts, I think everyone played well. Uh, right, like barring certain
I
players.
think over, like I said, there were some where you were like, "What is happening there?" Like the left side, I don't know. Like the left side looked horrific compared to
Yeah,
the right side in terms of not only like going forward but defending. It just was not there. I don't know. That's because you have Gakpo up top on that side, and he's not really, used to playing on that wing. Costas, who already looks weak, and I'm saying this as like a little dude, the weather makes the weak look weaker. And that's why you saw Nunez in the second half. Nunez was loving this. He was like, hey, this is freaking great. Like to do it. Muda has the wrong score there. Well, the bottom line is right. We did get the win at the 1-2-1. I think so. Let's talk about that, right? Overall, we saw like some mixed performances. I think
right.
obviously the weather helps a team that's, I don't want to say less skill. That's kind of like rude towards Bournemouth. But at the end of the day, the players who are more technical get affected by the weather. And if you're used to more playing the physical and you kind of like crossing the ball constantly anyway, it kind of like, played into their hands. What I did think, though, is they took advantage of it a lot better than we did, like when we had the first half in terms of the weather.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially since with like the corners and everything, that one nearly went in if not for Gomez. So yeah, credit to Bournemouth. They gave us a proper fight, and we did have a feeling like this wasn't going to be as easy. Like I know Gordo and I predicted like very easy wins, but obviously you'll never know, especially when the conditions were as bad as it was. And thankfully, it was one of those games where let's just get it done, and we did. Thankfully, like I know Klopp is going to have a talking to certain people, Gravenberch, in terms of managing games. But yeah, it was the good thing about this. It was a learning experience for certain players, and we managed to get away from certain players making a lot of mistakes relatively scot free. I would say.
I think so. I mean, I felt overall, we did decent defensively. It's a pain in the butts. I mean, to play.
Yeah,
This is like a horrific weather to play in. I know some defenders love the rain. Yeah, sliding, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, Ellen says nasty now. Yeah, that is like just a horrible weather to play in because you have no idea where the ball is going. I think it's a lot easier to play actually in some ways. I felt the second half is a lot easier to play with and you're defending because the wind almost helps you a little bit because when it bounces,
right.
it speeds up. So the balls that go over your head, which we had a couple of times just skip out and go. The first half was a bigger pain because with the wind, what looks like initially a long ball that your goalie will come out for suddenly lands on your head and you're in the middle of the field. And we had that happen a couple of times. What did you think about Kwanzaa? I felt like he had a good game, but I don't know why he was giving so much responsibility in terms of it felt like everybody gave him the ball to build. And obviously he did make mistakes through that with the weather.
It could be that, or Bournemouth were targeting our side because, like you mentioned, like we talked about in the pregame, that side is the weaker side of our defense, with Kwanzaa being
That's
relatively
fair. Yeah.
new and Simicast being made of straw. So it would make sense, and credit to Kwanzaa, he's really stepped up. Like I had Matip as my man of the match, but I just realized how much responsibility was on Kwanzaa's shoulders. So like it's a big stepping stone for him. It made him look like it certainly made us look good. Like we didn't get a center back. Hey, we have a decent one here. But to your point, we shouldn't be putting too much pressure on the young kid and then expecting him to come through all the time, because that's playing with fire. I would say we got away with it this time, but maybe in future games, I don't know. It's a little risky.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the weather doesn't help, and he doesn't have the diagonal that we normally would get from like Van Dijk on that side,
Yeah,
for example, and that's what was missing. And honestly, it's kind of hard to do that diagonal in this weather because if the wind is with you, it's going to go longer. If the wind is on, it's going to fall short and go all over the place. But I just felt like what we did in the second half at times, and towards the end, we started just sending the ball. Once they put Nunez in there, I felt like it was a lot smarter to play off of him and have him battle for balls and then have McAllister, Gravenberg, and Trent pick those balls up that they're trying to clear. And we just did not do that. We just trying to keep. And I understand this is style. You stick with the style that's that you work on and it's making you successful. But I don't know. Sometimes you got to look at the weather and be like, hey, got to play smart at the same time. So a couple of things let's hit those because before the game we said, hey, we're looking at a couple of players' performances. So let's start from the back. Kelleher.
First half, I thought he looked quite assured. I thought he looked okay in the first half, a little bit more assured, making those good saves. It's the second half that he was kind of back to his normal, like, unreliable self towards the end of last season and this season. Now, the weather might have played a part. The weather might have played a part towards that, but I wasn't as comfortable seeing him. Again, it's kind of like how Gordo mentioned it. We kind of might have been spoiled with Allison. Seeing him with the ball on his feet trying to distribute, it kind of gets me a little wary considering, his lack of form and everything. And obviously the weather doesn't help. But, like I said, it's a pretty unique situation that we were put in terms of the weather, and we just needed to get through it. So I kind of have the same thing with Kelleher. It wasn't easy for him by any means, and he just needed to get through it. And at the end of the day, pretty much he did okay. Better than his previous performances, especially given the conditions.
Yeah, he didn't really struggle with set pieces, and that's why
Yeah.
I was getting furious with your boy Gravenberg, like just giving away like fouls, like unnecessary fouls.
Let's not
Just
go
like
there.
you don't need to just stand in front. We had numbers in every situation. We had numbers, and like right when we were signing off, I was talking about people coming off the bench. When you have kids playing, they don't really like controlling the game and stuff. They're still going to
Right.
play aggressive to show themselves. And I felt like, hey, this bench, you look at the bench before we go out, is a lot more mature. You won't get that. And you did get that from Gravenberg, like coming off the bench and almost like trying to do too much in some ways, or trying to not be the one that got passed to get the goal or whatever the case was. But he just in return like gave away silly balls. Whereas you kind of look at like what Mo did, like literally killing 2.5 minutes by himself on that right wing there. You see how McAllister kind of handled it. It was like a lot better overall. So let's keep going with the performances. Costas.
Looked lightweight as ever. Like I'm sure his stock definitely didn't rise, especially since you're like the number one Costas hater here at American Scouser. He didn't do himself any justice, I would say. Again, the weather didn't help, but again, I don't know if it's just like we're naturally okay. So Costas is like my new Joey G. Right, I'm definitely more assured watching Gomez this year than I am with Tsimikas. Like with him, seeing him, I just get nervous. So maybe he might have been all right but every time I see him on the ball, see him try and take on a guy one-on-one or try and defend a guy one-on-one, I get the jitters. So again, it might be the weather, but I think it's just an average performance from like a 5 out of 10. Definitely a lot he could improve on.
I just feel like, when it comes to the weather,
Yeah.
it can affect your play. So some of the stuff is, not fair to judge. Your long balls might land and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like he already looks physically weak, especially compared to,
Right.
like Robertson. And obviously, like I said, the weather affects it because you need to be even more physical. There's a lot more battling going on. Because not to mention, you're fighting the weather at the same time. It's snowing, raining in your eye and stuff like that. So it affects you even more. I just feel like some of the simple bowls and stuff like that he was doing on the ground. So that has nothing to do with weather. We're still not getting there, and we just could not get anything from the left-hand side. And that could be partially because Jones did not have his best game by any means. And obviously we had Gakpo on the left wing. So maybe he did not have like an outlet or somebody to support him on that side. But yeah, I thought he was just very poor. I probably, I would say probably the worst performance, even though he was out there, like Bodo was saying. I thought that was kind of dangerous to keep him out there for 95 minutes and then have him play again this weekend. That's going to be slightly scary, but we'll see how that goes. And I would really not be surprised. Mind you, he played the minutes as well, but based on performance and how much more fit he looks, having Gomez play as well.
Yeah. And Gomez has been practically flawless coming in this season. Like,
look who is on Gomez's side.
Hey, man! I try to be fair. Like, I was covering my face to start this show because Gravenberch literally almost sold the game. But yeah, with Gomez, you got to give credit where credit's due. He looks really assured, at least on the right. On the left, yet to be seen. But knowing him, he's more practical than flashy. So it would make sense to have him there. In terms, I believe it was Kazi who made that point, like a defender who'd actually try and sit back, help out Van Dijk deal with those counters. Now, yeah, in terms of let's just try and I'll use this to transition to Gomez's performance. He was really good tonight, like on the right side, and he made a practically a match-saving clearance off of the line, and that assuredness that he's had throughout the year, when we desperately needed it most, was there again. So, like, I say Matip's my man of the match, but Gomez along with Kwanzaa definitely has to be up there.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Gomez was like really good, and I think this kind of suits him because I know he doesn't look it like Van Dijk or a Konate or something like that, but he used the speed, physicality, and I thought, he had like a really good game overall. Endo was one guy that I said I will be watching. What did you think of his game?
It's all right. Like, not spectacular, but serviceable. Like, nothing spectacular. He just did his job, I would say. Like, compared to the likes of Jones and Elliott, I think he was more solid. Like, and to be fair, that's what we ask from our defensive midfielder. We don't need them to, dribble over two people or like play a killer pass. They just need to defend the back line. And I think Endo did that pretty solidly. And something crossed my mind when watching Endo like make a challenge, one of those challenges he made throughout the game. It would have been nice to have a player like him when Fabinho was at his prime. Maybe he wouldn't have declined as quickly because we had Hendo playing Fabinho's role at the 6. If we had another like true 6, maybe Fabinho wouldn't have gotten as washed as he was as quickly as he did, at age 29 playing for us. So like, he's a good player to have in the squad. Whether or not he's an outright starter, obviously, is a question for another day. But for what he is, solid. I would say solid game.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, because if you have Endo back then, I think you don't have to, Fabinho, by 29 years old, he played as many minutes as like a 39-year-old in the time he was here. And I think, you could put in at the 70th minute, especially games that you have in hand. So I like how he distributes the ball and he can pass between the lines. Yeah, I thought he did. I was actually shocked that he came off. Either he's not ready for a 90 in this kind of weather, like as physical as it was getting out there. I was kind of like shocked that he was the one coming out. I thought it was going to be a Szoboszlai coming out first before he does. Elliott is another player I thought had a really good game. I know there are times where it's like, oh, the pass is not there and stuff, but it felt like he was one of the guys that was actually trying to create something in the
Right.
first.
Like, yeah, it wasn't his best game, but it wasn't his worst game either for me. Like,
Yeah,
he should have buried that chance in the first half for sure. I feel like he should have buried it. It's a little too tame an
yeah,
effort. But like in terms of performances, there are definitely worse players. There are definitely worse performances out there, namely Soboslai. Like, I'll
yeah,
use this transition to Soboslai. It's like he heard that I asked you to bet on him because he kept firing shot after shot and after shot looking for a goal. I was like, dude, pass the ball, recycle it. Like, let the play develop instead of taking shot after shot. Like, I get it. He fancies himself, which is great. But there
yeah,
comes a point where, this is what Hendo and Wijnaldum and Fabinho did the best. Like, we criticize, we praise our midfield now for being super adventurous, but they got to find that balance as well, like the old midfield did, where if there's nothing on, try and cycle it around, switch sides and everything until an opening presents itself instead of taking pot shots from long range and giving the ball away, which I think
yeah.
supposed
It
like
almost felt like he felt like it's a lot more had to come from him,
yeah.
right? Like compared to normal. Instead
Hmm.
of being part of the play, it felt like he took more on himself. It's like it's me and Mo who has to win this game, kind of an attitude, which was not really necessary. Obviously, he's not in his normal spot. Um, but yeah, this is probably the worst we've seen him, right? Since he's been here, and I thought he was gonna come off really a
Yeah.
lot earlier. Even then, he could have been really influential. He did have a couple of those shots almost
Yeah.
went in, and he just the threat of his shot, I
Yeah.
think, is enough to pull the defense forward sometimes to create that space
Right.
behind. But obviously, you got to take advantage of that space behind. But yeah, I thought he was poor overall, and maybe he was one of those that it felt like got affected by the weather the most. And
Mm.
because it wasn't only the wind and the rain, obviously, because of all that rain, the field was really sloppy as well. I
Yeah.
mean, the way the ball rolled and stuff like that. But hey, man, I mean, 'tis the season, if you will. It's November. We're going to be getting a bunch of these, so I can kind of see how we get more and more of games like this. So something that they'll have to get used to. Gakpo gets the goal, but I mean, obviously not in his natural spot. I
Yeah.
thought he had some good moments. Average.
Yeah, quite average. Like, I know he's played the left a lot, especially for Holland and his old team, but he's less influential there, especially given the conditions where it felt like ball on the ground wouldn't work as well as it would, right? And Gakpo is pretty much a ball on the ground kind of slick build up kind of player compared to Nunez, where you can be direct, just launch a ball or thread a ball through there and then just see what happens. With him, it's more intricate, and these conditions are not for anything intricate. So I think that affected him the most. But hey, it's also like kind of credit to him where he wasn't having the best game, kind of like a Jota situation where he wasn't having the best game, but he still found a way to to influence the game and get on the score sheet. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got to figure, hey, you got your goal kind of a thing. But aside from that, there was actually a moment I thought he earned a yellow card, like how he turned with the ball and stuff. I just don't think we used him enough at times, too.
Right.
We kind of messed around way too much in the back, and we couldn't do much with it. We were clearly not being able to build from the back, either due to the capacity. And it's funny because I don't know, when we talk about the left hand side, we were talking about Costas not having somebody maybe like a winger like Diaz in front of him. But I don't know, like Gakpo probably could say, well, because I had Costas behind me as well. So I don't know how much of the blame for that left side and being so ineffective today goes to that. And hey, we went to the next round, so you don't want to be too critical. And it was a hellhole of a game. It's like, let's just get the win and get out. You're not really looking for beauty or a performance in weather like that. You just want grit and get over the finish line, which we did. But you still gotta, talk about what you see and what we see. Um, so he says, like, where was our buddy on the Bayern bed losing the third division? Really? I know I saw it earlier when it was 1-1. I don't know how it ended, but Gordo, that's why Gordo is not on the post match, because he's betting over there probably on like games. That's why he's not joining us. But Okay, Mo, obviously his hair struggled a lot, but I think he did good work overall. And I was actually shocked he was out there the
Towards
entire
the end.
time, right? He played the whole game.
Yeah, he
Uh,
played the whole game. Yeah, with Mo, it's like kind of like what you were making the point on Supposedly, just being a threat. But then him being a threat will not necessarily scoring a goal or making an assist. He's doing it in a really refined manner, especially towards the end, where he has the situational awareness to understand where we're at and what we
yes.
need. So Szoboszlai definitely needs to look into how Salah and my boy Gravenberch needs to look as to how Salah managed the game towards the end. Like obviously, no goals, no assists, but in terms of how he helped close out that game, absolutely invaluable. Like absolutely invaluable in terms of our attackers.
And I
So
think he worked off the ball a lot, and it was kind of like a struggle. And you could tell we got more out of Mo the moment Nunez came in.
yes,
And yeah, it's kind of like I was shocked, and I think it was almost like, you know what, you go out there, be the captain. I mean, yeah, well deserved, and I thought he did well overall. I mean, he was a threat, and you could see the moment Nunez came in, he became a lot better as well. And I felt like we did not use Nunez enough. This was ideal for him. I mean, scores like a ridiculous goal. And maybe I think Gally was mentioning on a Discord, we got to kind of. I mean, I can't wait for freaking Friday morning when we talk to Anam, by the way.
right.
But it's going to be like you after Gravenberg. So, but I mean, he literally changed the game today after he came in.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing we'd want from Nunez. Like, again, we're trying to avoid anything negative, but I quoted you on Discord. This is just him in a nutshell. Awful touch, right? But
Yes.
then an absolutely world class goal. Like it was the inverse of what he did against Toulouse, which is just world class dribbling. But then Sunday
Yes.
league,
Yep.
yeah, which is Sunday league finish. So like it's Nunez. I believe the commentator put it really well before. He's hit or miss, but this year he's been mostly hit, and that's already a win for me. And I stand by what I said. He's still my first choice in the middle, and this is exactly why. We talk about build up. We could go into the intricacies, but that goal right there, out of all attackers, bar Mo, you would fancy Nunez to come up with a moment of genius like that over anyone else. Like
No, I
hands down.
think,
Yeah.
when you need a goal, yeah,
Yeah.
he is the guy to go to. But having said that, that is exactly why I would still start Gakpo over him and have
Uh,
him come in
come
like
on,
he did
come
today.
on, Tim. Like he
Change
scores
the
a
game.
worldie. Like let's just.
Especially like when you go against see, like I thought this was a much better game for
right,
him today
right.
because
Yeah,
he was, it's required a lot more physicality, a lot more fun. He was loving it. He was like, this is what I love. Like this is
mhm.
his thing, as opposed to the intricate build up and stuff like that we would normally do. So I guess Liverpool flight back is canceled, says Cersei. They're stuck in Bournemouth. Not the worst
Jeez.
place to be stuck in, to be fair.
Mm.
But yeah, I would. Trust me, I've flown in some crappy weather. I'd rather not be flying in this shit, that's for sure. John says Kwanzaa was excellent time for us. Yes, I mean, yeah, we covered him earlier, and I think, yeah, he is definitely knows where to be, what to do. The build up will get better, I think, as we go. And hey, saying it as like a past defender in my former life, if you will, that's a bitch of a weather to play defense in. And I thought they did extremely well. And I know we gave up a lot of shots and some weird bounces and stuff like that, but I thought they did like extremely well. Sergi, we need like flash news, man. How tight were the socks? I didn't get to. I was actually, if it wasn't for the post match, I was gonna watch the end and watch the reaction. But were the socks really tight? Because that's probably why they lost. So actually, we have the Premier League panel show, by the way, tonight. And actually, in about 3 hours, we're going to go live with the panel. We'll have a newcomer from Newcastle this week. So I'm sure he'll be able to talk about this game and tell us a bit more about what happened in the cup matchup. But is that the end for Ten Hag, by the way?
No, let's save him for Liverpool United, right? And
That's
then
what I was really, what? Great minds think alike. I thought the same. I'm like, let's play him, beat him,
yeah,
give him
beat
the
him, and
old
then
Liverpool farewell.
right, and then he could go. But it's pretty shaky ground now. It's very thin ice. Like all the metaphors in the world in terms of the situation being treacherous for him. So like, yeah, I don't know. My uncle just texted me that they only need 14 more goals to win or some shit like that because he's a United fan. So like, oh man, like I don't know. I mean, long may it continue, but hey, on that note, like how decent is this draw looking now for us? Like City are out, Arsenal are out, United are out. Like we are undoubtedly the best team.
Yeah,
We are
there's definitely an overdose of Timuchin for American Scouser fans today. They might not want to
right.
see me for like a month after today, which I
Right,
would have.
right. Man, you need a much tomorrow is a much needed day off, let me tell you. Especially for like I did 3 shows, but then you're doing the Premier League panel show later, so like damn, I was like that's 4 shows on the bounce. But
I'll let the boys talk mostly tonight and let me know what they think
right.
about the Premier League overall. But yeah, the draw that you're referring to, which I was kind of trying to keep an eye on that. Last time we were able to announce it while we were live, but I don't think it has even started yet. Yeah,
Mhm.
so when we look right now, you have West Ham, Chelsea,
Yeah.
Everton, Fulham, Newcastle.
Mm.
Who do you want?
Obviously I'd get the weakest team on in that draw, man. I'd
Who
probably
is the
want
weakest?
I'd
Everton
probably
or
want a
Fulham?
right. I'd probably want Fulham, like honestly, or because Everton, like they're lower than Fulham in the table. But I mentioned it last time. In terms of like these teams at the lower end of the table, you'd fancy Everton to get points off of us more than anyone because of them being up for the derby more. It's like the psychological effect, I'd say.
That's fair.
Right, especially if we get like Everton away, that's gonna be trickier than let's say a Fulham away. So like by all accounts, it is a massively favorable draw for us. I would say that we are comfortably the best team amongst those remaining. Like especially with Newcastle and Tonali being out. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how far we progress.
Which
In,
I
in
did
this.
watch. Okay, so on the other side we have what? Middlesbrough and Port Vale is still in this, right?
Oh, hold
Yes.
on. Yeah, yeah, I
That was
missed those guys.
yesterday.
Right, but there
Those
you
were the
go.
ones I was like, wait, that's only 6 teams. How the hell did that happen? That's why, because those guys played
Right,
yesterday.
right,
So we want obviously one of those in an
right,
ideal.
right. There we go. Yeah.
I think as long as we're home, I will feel pretty confident with whoever is left in there. I'm always afraid these. I mean, I like the Bournemouth games. I don't know what it is. The width of that pitch. There's no way it's as wide as some of the others. I know like they are like different ratios, but it was just like so. This
Yeah.
is bring on Porval. Yeah, I mean, really, that's fine and dandy. Like I say, as long as it's home, I think I do feel pretty confident about it. So as we wrap up here, what do you take away from this game?
What I take away is we have a really deep squad. Like I did not expect our squad, like in terms of depth, yeah. In terms of a player by player basis, yeah, we have a deep squad, but I didn't expect the depth pieces to be this good. So, like, in terms of just getting the job done, not necessarily being overly spectacular, like being on the highlights every time, but in terms of grinding out those results and getting past, we've been having steady progress in the Europa League, and we've been having steady progress here. We've barely broke a sweat. Like you could say that it's luck of the draw and whatever, but hey, you just play whoever's in front of you, right? And we
Yeah.
could have easily lost this game, mind you, but the players stepped up and delivered. So yeah, I'm delighted. And like I said, this cup pretty much has opened up for us in terms of the opposition, in terms of a pathway towards winning it. So I'm definitely looking forward to how far we could go.
Yeah, I agree. And not to mention, winning is kind of like habitual, right? I mean, we've
Yeah,
been just as losing is, just as United and their socks. I mean, it's the ties get tighter and tighter, those socks, as you
right.
keep losing. And I think that's the thing, like as you win, that confidence boosts up. And I think winning while you're being able to rotate and get people more minutes, get more people more acclimated, I think is huge. So, not the best performance, crappy weather, big part of that, a huge part of that. I think it kind of goes without saying, but at the end of the day, it's job done. It's a cup game. You win, you go to the next round. You go to the next round if you win 4-0 or 2-1, whatever the case is. And I think it was probably not as scary as we felt it was.
Graven Birch made it scary.
Grab him, yes. Your boy definitely added to the horror in the spirit of Halloween over here. But hey, we win again, go to the next rounds. For those of you who had enough of me today, sucks to be you, because I'll be on in like about 3 hours with the gang over here with the Premier League panel show. Join us then. We'll definitely touch up on the games today, I would think, because most of them were involved. But definitely a lot of like Premier League talk and stuff like that to get some perspective from fans from different teams. It's always interesting to get like
Right.
their view of, for example, it'll be interesting to hear what they say about our win today compared to what we're saying about our win today. So, but join us then, John. Thanks as always. Saito is jumping in at the last second. Yes, Gravenberch is good, but he is. I think it was just a matter of
Yeah,
controlling your nerves is
he
more.
is just 21, so like that comes with time, right?
It does, and I think
Yeah.
it comes with being in this team a bit more too. I mean, thank God it wasn't a learning experience in result of a goal, but I think this will be something talked about. You will see, you look at how Mo and Trent and them close out a game compared to like how Gravenberch was closing out a game, and I think you
Right.
you rather have these learning lessons while you're still winning as opposed to losing that winning position or stuff like that. So, but thanks a lot as always for those of you joining us. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe. If you have a friend who's a Liverpool fan who is not following us, what the hell are they thinking, first of all? So grab him by the ear, drag him to YouTube. Saidu, I expect at least 5 new followers from you by dragging people over to YouTube and giving us a follow. But thanks to all those joining us. Like I say, I'll be back later on tonight with the Premier League panel.